Oh no, I don't have YouTube. No, I don't.
Oh, okay, yeah. Or
We're live, guys.
Hey, hello.
Hey, welcome to Flim Scored.
Flim.
Flim. The Fate's Black podcast, and we are here with DJ Psykhomantus and Mr. Paul James from New York City. So for those that don't know me, I am Sophia Ramcharan. I am a producer and film programmer based in Nottingham in the UK. And I would like to allow our guests to introduce themselves. So over to my co-host, DJ Psykhomantus.
What up? This is DJ Psykhomantus, DJ, creative director, and now film critic.
Thank you. And over to Paul.
Paul James, creative director, draftsman in New York City, Brooklyn, New York. Yeah.
So tell us about your work, Paul. What have you been, what's your claim to fame?
Claims to fame. So I was in advertising for decades, and done my fair share of soda commercials, burger commercial, car commercials, from Cadillac to Lincoln, from Pepsi to Coke, from McDonald's to Burger King, I swear to God. And after there was a slowdown at my last agency, I was working with Spike DDB. He had a advertising wing. Left there, and I've just been freelancing. Right now, I'm working with a partner on for a non-for-profit, ifateo.org, which is kind of like the Saturday schools you guys used to have, I think. You still have Saturday schools?
Some places we do, where the funding allows.
When the funding allows. So it's kind of like that, where it's for children of the African diaspora to come learn dance, learn history, learn art. And so we're running a social media program, redesigning the website, and doing stuff for census here and there. But that's slowing down. So we're not going to have to mess with that much. And yeah, that's it. You know, I've got a couple other things on the back burner, but trying to avoid getting sick from COVID.
Well, you're here in lockdown in New York, and we're on this podcast to enjoy films. So I hope everybody watching has a good time tonight. Before we continue, though, obviously of the weekend, we were all touched by the sad news of Chadwick Boseman. And I'd like to take this opportunity to express our sincere condolences to the family and loved ones. Sure. Definitely an extraordinary talent gone too far. And I just wanted to really ask you two of the impacts of Chadwick's work, and specifically our Black community. What's your thoughts, feelings, vibe on what he has achieved in his very short life on Earth?
Damn, it's a big one, because you know, this young man, I think, knowing now that, you know, he's now gone, but like I think when I think about him, I think about how much work he delivered when he was diagnosed with cancer. And he managed to push out 8 to 9 films. And to me, it's like, you know, he didn't let it stop. I possibly could not imagine what is in your mind knowing you have this disease. And, you know, I don't know, it's making me just think, wow, that's a strong dude, man. His body of work, the films he played, yes, he'll be remembered morely for playing Black Panther, but he played James Brown, he played Jackie Robinson. There's another biography film he played, but I've
Thurgood Marshall, I think.
Yes, yeah, I've not seen that one yet. I'm just going through the films at the moment of the ones that I've not seen. There's four films out of the I can't remember how many films he's made. I think it's 12, I think, that is made. It's, and not only that, seeing him as a gentleman, because I did show, I'm sure I passed this on to you, Sophia, when he was on Jimmy Fallon's show, the Jimmy Fallon show. And I think there was like an open room for people who did watch Black Panther. And a few people came into a room and wanted to express their feelings after they watched the film, not knowing that Chad was behind the poster. And when they finished saying what they said, you know, he popped out, and it was a beautiful thing, because it was like, they didn't expect it. It was the most nicest thing. And the way he approached and you know, said what up and hi and hugged, it was, you know, you felt it in the heart. It was like, this guy is cool. He could have been like any other actor where a fan wants to say something and they, you know, fans can be nonchalant. I mean, sorry, actors can be nonchalant and like, hi, cool, and then gone. No, this guy took time. So, hey, how's it going? Come here. You know what I mean? I heard, cool. You know, he joked with them like he knew them for years. You don't see that in an actor. Like, he was a great dude. That's, you know, when I think of him, that's what I think is like, nah, this is a big loss. This guy was phenomenal.
How about you, Paul?
You seem very, very, very humble. Like, to everything you said, and to the point that his humility, I think, is what I think drew people to him. And there was looking on Instagram, and there was somebody had a thread of pictures that they took with him. I think somebody who knew him from school. And so they were on a roof, and I knew it was a roof in Brooklyn because I could see like the Armory, one of the, like we got a couple of armories in my neighborhood, and I could see the Armory in the background. I was like, that's a Brooklyn roof. And he was eating like out of the aluminum foil, some takeout food. And I could almost tell like what kind of food it was. Like it looked like Jamaican because it looked like there was some rice and peas and a chicken wing in there. And they were sitting on the roof on a nice Sunday afternoon, eating and looking out over the thing. And I was like, that was the most genuine thing, because I've seen him dressed up for the Met Gala. I've seen him on runways, and I've seen him as an actor. But just to see him sitting on the roof, drinking a Snapple and eating food out of a tin, and it's like, you know, just real, man. Just a real quality. There was a realness to him, man. And I, you know, I think he was about to do some amazing things. I think he was about to step to that next tier of Denzel, James Earl Jones,
definitely.
like that.
Ryan Coogler wrote that Chadwick is now an ancestor.
Yeah.
Which when I read those words, you know, it was just so powerful to think, you know, of Chadwick in those terms. How important do you think the role that defines him, the Black Panther role, how important do you think that is to a generation of young Black children?
Well, yeah, that film, obviously, I do remember a friend who took his daughter to watch that film, and it opened eyes for them. I think it opened eyes for the older generation as well. Because to answer that question, for me and my friend, his name's Michael Morgan, who did do the animation of the fight scene that you've seen with Black Panther fighting his cousin. His name's Michael Morgan. He did the animation for that, and he said it best. He says this was a wonderful film that you could watch without hearing the N-word or anything bad towards Black, towards Black people and stuff. Where nowadays every film or TV series that you see, you know, it's like they have to put that in. It's like rappers that have to say the N-word. It's like, no, you don't. And going back to that question, my friend's daughter, I think she more or less says like she never possibly would imagine seeing a film where the black guy is the hero, the black guy is the superhero. And that just says it all, because it's like, it's great that a young generation can see something like that and think there is a possibility that we can come out of that, dare I say, the dark cloud where we, black people, is seen to be just always stereotyped with something negative. So, yeah, if a kid, I mean, my partner's daughters, they love that film. So it's like, yeah, that was the hope, the great hope, you know, and he played that part very well.
Yeah, Paul, coming on that.
It's tough because I'm like, I think it's really important, you know, being a grown ass man now, the whole idea of needing to see your role models, to see black people in these roles. Like I remember, and then I remember what it was like to watch Roots the first time on TV.
The original
Roots TV, and I was like, holy shit, a whole entire series about black people. And I remember it was like a bunch of us, and we went back to school like the day after Roots was on, and we were like all talking about it. And I think Roots for a lot of us was our first recognition of Black history being other than what they're teaching us here. White people not being the fucking, excuse my French, not being the heroic ones that they've been painting themselves as throughout history. It was the first, I think, Roots helped bring around Public Enemy and Ice Cube when he left NWA. It was a part of that. It was part of that whole, you know, Black African medallions. I mean, the kids who grew up watching Roots grew up Black, creating that music, creating this movement. And then things fell asleep. Things got very gangster. Things got very, very material. And then we came to Black Panther, which would have been maybe for a long time, the first time a pro-Black message came out that was uniquely pro-Black and powerful, and putting Blackness on a wonderful pillar of, you know, exaltedness. And so I might have taken that for granted, having come up in that original state. But for kids growing up in the 2000s who hadn't had it, it was absolutely necessary. So I'm glad they got to see it. I'm glad they got to imagine something grander than what usual media shows them.
Well, rest in power, Chadwick Boseman. Very, very sad indeed.
Very much.
So let's crack on with why we're here, which is exploring 70s and 90s cinema. Woo! First, I want to start with the basics. I know you've all selected your tunes, you know, like it's a dance.
I do that.
Selected your rhythms. No, you selected your Flim. So let's start with the basics. All right, Paul, what are the ingredients of a good film for you?
Oh, wow.
Whoa. I couldn't even answer that question. I mean, because every film is totally different. Some films I like because they're ridiculous, and like, I want to fall into a world that I haven't seen before. I want to experience, I want to see people and hear voices that are, I don't know, almost completely different, but relatable. One of my favorite films in history in my life is Black Cat, White Cat, about gypsies on the Danube. Crazy film. I have nothing in similarity with these people, but it's just it draws you in. Mm-hmm. It's there's a love story in it. And I think that's maybe what it is. The love story is so sweet, so wonderful. So that's a universal quality. So I think all films have to have a universal quality in the mix of being completely alien.
Yeah.
Okay.
And sounds good enough.
Escapism.
Sure, why not?
How about you? What makes a good film for you, Psykhomantus?
It's just what my man said. I mean, to me, I'm more expect the unexpected. I don't like to really truly, if there's a film coming out, I'm the type of person who doesn't want to see the trailers. Just want to just go in there and think, okay, I don't know what I've gone into, let me watch it. And I'm very much into, I can't turn around and say what is my number one film or what's my top 5, because every film has got a different story to tell.
Yeah.
For a man that loves horrors, I mean, I love horror films. Yeah, I like to watch something that is just totally not normal. Something strange. I'm into sci-fi films, horrors. But yeah, it's and I'm very more into independent films than Hollywood films, because Hollywood films, it's like, yeah, that's the big Hollywood star. If it's a dude, yeah, that's the guy, he's getting the girl, he's gonna win, the bad guy's gonna get killed. I can't stand any of that. I really, really can't. I rather like what's going on. I thought this guy was supposed to be the hero, but he just got shot 10 minutes into this film, and you know, and stuff. So yeah, I'm very much watch the unexpected and stuff. So, you know, someone turns around and tells me, yeah, Evil Dead's coming out, like, I'll be the first one there, like, yeah, I'm gonna watch that because it's just a crazy bugged out film. That's
excellent. Me. Okay, good to know. So hopefully in your selections will be some of those key characteristics you just explained.
I hope so. Jeez, I hope I wasn't talking out my ass. I hope I can pull that out. Hey, ready.
He said.
So if we segue down, let's start with the 90s.
We're starting with the 90s.
What defines a good 90s film for you? What is a 90s film? If you had to kind of put, you know, explain to an alien from outer space what a 90s film is, what ingredients would you put in that film that defines it? Or could you?
Michael Bay.
Okay.
No, I mean, you know, it's a little bit flip. He did sort of make his name in the 90s, though, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Armageddon and Bad Boys and this, that, and the other. Puffy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the cinematography was always, everything was over bloated, over low angle, you know, which is very wide angle. It was I'm thinking Busta Rhymes, I'm thinking Hype Williams, I'm thinking like there was a definite
I'm glad you
quality.
Hype Williams, yeah, he actually, that's a good question what you just asked there, Sophia. You know, because for some reason I'm thinking of, you know, this more or less goes to a song, Ghetto Superstar. And that's how I feel that's how the 90s did go, because if I'm bouncing from the 80s to the 90s, again, I'm more or less talking from a music perspective, but it's the same in film. It's like record companies, and I'm sure it's the same with movies, was like, yo, this is the thing, grab these young black people, let's milk them, push it out, and stuff. Where the 80s, it was like they were real, we had to fight to be noticed. While this time in the 90s, it was like, grab them. Yeah, you're right to bring in Puff Daddy, because Puff Daddy did glorify what they wanted. And it was like, yeah, I'm not really into those brothers with the shiny shoots and the you know, I prefer the real nitty gritty. And that got taken away in the 90s. That's how I look at the 90s, film or music.
Okay. So with that in mind, let's talk about your film choices.
Cool.
So Paul, your 2 film choices for the 90s?
Yeah, what were they? I forgot.
Juice and Deep Cover.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Which came first? Was it Juice that came first?
So Juice, both the same year.
Oh, wow.
92.
Wow.
92.
What was that, 94?
92.
92?
Yeah, you're 92. I went cinema to watch Juice, actually.
So explain to me, because they are kind of in the same vein, but very different kinds of films. So explain to me why you picked those films for this era.
Just the way I think just the way they made me feel. I mean, I think Deep Cover for me was Larry Fishburne. He was Larry Fishburne back then, not Lawrence.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes, that's right.
That's right. He made a big stink about that. But he was young and he was edgy, and to your point, we were talking earlier about something about his eyes.
Yeah.
His eyes had an intensity that I think was something I could relate to very, very, very much so. I mean, just the hungry young man trying to make his way in a cruel, cruel world. But also, I mean, around that time, I was also going to LA on shoots and experiencing that sort of going back to Cali kind of energy. And I think for me that it would, Lawrence Fishburne really was the cornerstone of that film. He made that film come to life. But it was also the combination of him and my man from Jurassic Park.
Jeff
Jeff
Goldblum.
Goldblum. Yeah. I mean, it was a surprise to see Jeff Goldblum in the film. It was like, it gave the film a scale that I don't think a lot of films of that genre had. It was a really, I don't know, I mean, it's a hard one to put a hold on it. It was a story that just sucked you in and pulled you in, and I really enjoyed it. Oh, and there was a girl in that film that I went to high school with.
Okay.
So that was, yeah, the little drug, the one who wanted to sell her son.
Oh yes, I remember. I
remember her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to high school, and it was actually, I remember going to her house after school one day, and I walked into the house. This is kind of a sidebar. I walked in the house. It was like a really nice house, and he had like the nice picture in the hallway with the family, and he had the beautiful wife and the beautiful kids. And I was like, "Wow, what does your dad do?" And she said, "My dad's an advertiser." I was like, "That's what I'm gonna fucking do."
Oh wow!
Nice.
So I don't think Kamala knows that. If you're seeing this, if you're watching this.
Amazing facts. Definitely having Jeff Goldblum. Wasn't really expecting him.
Yeah.
But he had another dimension. I completely agree with you. Like, I don't want to say he elevated it, but he just added a different.
It was good for him. It rounded him out as an actor and made him kind of hood famous.
Right.
Kids in the hood said, "Holy shit, look at my man from Jurassic Park killing it." You know, when Jurassic Park came out, after or before?
I think Jurassic Park came. Oh, that's a good question. I feel it's after, but
let me just check my facts.
But I could be wrong. Well, why you check your facts?
93. It came out a year after.
The year after. Okay.
They were probably produced around the same time. He might have been produced the cover before.
Yeah. It's a very good film. And, you know, we were saying the quotes, the dialogue, just amazing. Like, the standalone quotes in there, one-liners, just fantastic. And you were saying, Paul, that it's based on a former novelist?
Iceberg Slim's Pimp. The book Pimp. A lot of the sort of rap, rhyme, poetry style, I think was lifted directly from that book.
Wow.
I have a seminal as far as, you know, street life, a story about street life and pimping and the whole thing.
Really, really good choice of film. And your second one was Juice.
Oh, before you go into the second one, can I just add, didn't Lawrence Fishburne take in the boy from...
He did.
The little boy? I can't remember.
Yes.
He did, yeah.
Because like the mother got killed, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
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 I haven't seen it in a while, so
Yeah, I remember that. He took him in and,
Yeah.
you know, I thought, you know, because that boy was about to be, you know, homeless. They were in a bad, or his mother was, like you said, she was like the drug. Well, no, she was taking drugs. I just remember when you mentioned her, I just remember the one scene where she wanted to have sex with him, and he's like, no, 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 and she was like, you know, my ish is clean, you know. So I remember that bit. But yeah, I remember she got killed.
Of all the things, you remember that line.
But it's like Friday. It's like Felicia. I remember her. So, you know, just remembering all these, you know, my man language skank hoes. But, you know, so it goes. Again, I like you know, expect the unexpected. I like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I add as well in that film, you know, the soundtrack, Deep Cover, which was awesome, by Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg, and that was Snoop Dogg's really official first song.
Oh wow, there you go.
187 on the
knowledge. And Shabba Ranks.
He was in that too. He had a soundtrack song in there too.
Yes, they always do that when they have you know, a little sort of relaxed, mellow herb scene. They always put on the reggae, don't they?
Sure.
I'm sure it's Mr. Loverman. There's one of them in there.
Are you sure? I am looking on the soundtrack. I do not see a Shabba Ranks song.
Yeah, I don't remember that either. It might have been in Juice. It might have been in Shabba.
I'm going to have to do some quick fact checking. Shabba, Deep Cover. I'm sure Mr. Loverman's in there.
I don't see it in there. I am literally looking at the soundtrack.
Yes. Shabba Ranks and Chevelle Franklin, Mr. Loverman, Deep Cover soundtrack.
Oh yeah, I do see it. Sorry, I do see it now. Yes.
Did you doubt my research skills? Of course, I'm a reggae girl, so I'm going to pick up on that one straight away. That was there.
Yeah, that's a big one. That is a
big tune. Big tune. So the second one is Juice with Mr. Tupac Shakur and again and
it makes me laugh. Sorry, I have to say this. It makes me laugh when everyone talks about Juice. They just use Tupac Shakur, and I thought Omar Epps was amazing in that film, but I say no more. Everyone loves the fog.
That whole crew, that little crew that they created, it had a real chemistry, which I really, really enjoyed seeing a chemistry. And I think the whole idea of Tupac plays back to the whole thing you were saying, we were talking about earlier about them realizing, the money guys realizing, listen, man, this hip hop thing, it's taking off. We got to get some of these hip hop guys in the movies.
Yeah.
And Tupac had, I think he hadn't really not blown up to anything yet. I mean,
he was, because not a lot of people realize, well, if they do, he only had like a small part in Digital Underground.
That's right.
He was a dancer first, and then he did make his few songs, and then like Blinda Had a Baby, which was a big track on UMTV Raps, and then that was it. Then the film came out, and then he kind of started stepping up. But go on, Sophia was asking you, you know, your reasons for this film.
Oh, let's see what else. I just liked the whole feel of the film. It was something about, it felt genuine to New York. It felt very much, it was like a New York crew. It was a New York production. It was
definitely New York.
It comes across really strongly New York, and there was something I was very much drawn to it again at that period about 92, 93, that it felt of a period, something I could totally relate to. My favorite scene in the whole movie is when they were all playing hooky at the house, and the heavyset kid is frying up some shit in the kitchen, eating some after school snacks or whatever, and then Bishop Tupac blows up and loses it a little bit. But what I liked about it was when they started fighting and they broke up the furniture. And it wasn't, you guys got to cut out the fight with Frank. It was like, look what you did to my mom's house. My mom is going to kill me. That's some shit people say. That's what I could relate to.
Yeah.
And it was like, I just thought it was a brilliant film. I just thought it was a good one. It was a good one, man.
Yeah. Let me add it. Can I add into that? Yeah, I remember when I first watched that film, me and the crew I was in, I used to be in this rap group, well, this hip hop group called Nubian Element. So yeah, I was 15, I think, 15, 16. And we went to the cinema to watch that. And to us, it was like, it was this big thing because we're going to watch a hip hop film. We were hip hop. We were those kids that just hung out and you know, we went to the clubs. We went to the same shop with each other. If it wasn't at my house, we'll go to one of their houses because there were 4 of us, just like in the film. There was 4 of them, and like the only thing that we didn't do was the bad activities because, you know, obviously, like you said, it's 4 New York boys. They're cutting class. They go to the arcade. They're getting chased by the police. You had Omar Epps, who played Q. He's, you know, his dream was to be a DJ. Yeah, you had I can't remember the chubby kid's name. You had him like walking around with the boombox. And like you said, if they went to his house, he's the one that cooked up the food. You had I can't remember his name.
Steel? The heavy
Steel, yeah. You
Steel.
had Steel, Pretty Boy. He had a baby mums. He was like having, you know, baby mum drama and cool, but he seemed to be the sensible one. And then you had like Tupac, who played Bishop, who was obviously had like issues back home. He was the thug. He was the one that was getting kind of like, but I don't know where to say, ganged up by Tretch and, you know, this Hispanic guy and stuff. So you were seeing, you know, these guys roll together and stuff, and that's what I liked about it, because it was like, yeah, if I was relating this to my crew, it's like, I'm this guy from this town, my other friend is this, there's other guys like that, and yeah, it's just a good way of an insight of these kids dealing with society. They were supposed to go to school, the rather cut class, they were getting chased by the police. If they're not getting chased by the police, then they're having beef with a next set of crew who's just like them in their neighborhood. So it was a good cutting edge film. And for me, the most, I suppose that's the reason why I would attack Tupac, is because I related more with Q, because I was that kid that got up in the morning and wanted to scratch on my turntables. If I knew there was like a competition at my youth club or whatsoever, I'll be the first one to go there. Like, yo, I'm gonna go in and enter this competition. And in the film, you know, they was about to do a robbery, and it was the same day. And I remember Q turning around saying, "I ain't missing this competition for nobody." And I related to that to the most. It was like, nah, this is my dream. I want to go up on this. I want my name up on these flyers. Let's go to these record stores and get these new songs. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, yeah, that film was amazing. It was an amazing film.
It's funny. I remember I think I saw myself in Steel. It only just the way he was very fastidious with his clothes, how he laid out his shit, he put his stuff together, he had the sneakers that did, and I was like, yeah, I could feel that.
Oh yeah, yeah, I remember.
That very much felt like the kid. But there was another thread. There was something else that was very interesting, and I think it's something that will be, you know, connect to something else later. The idea of Bishop Tupac taking care of his I think his father was kind of dead in the eyes. Something was wrong with his old man. You know, he couldn't connect to it. And I was reminded of something else, but it was the idea of Mike Tyson. I know that's what.
Excuse me, I'm just going to answer my door. Sorry.
Yeah, sure.
We'll continue.
Should I continue?
Yeah.
So, but like the whole idea that when I think about Mike Tyson, I think Mike Tyson was slightly touched. He used to sit on his roof with pigeons. Pigeons was the only place that he felt comfortable, where he felt like
Mike Tyson.
Mike Tyson, a boxer, a Brooklyn cat. And so we all heard the story about how Mike used to go up on his roof and play with his birds and fly his pigeons. And that was the only place he could talk to, feel human. Everywhere else, he was just a thug on the street. And I felt like the whole idea that every cat, all of our heavies have another life that they have to hide from the world. I was just saying how how Bishop's story with his father, who was a slightly, I think, mentally touched, disabled. I don't know what his father was going through. Reminded me of Mike Tyson,
right? And
the whole idea of there being this world that they have to keep hidden away from the rest of the world. It rounds out. Is it a cliche? Is it a cheap way to make a character seem like there's more depth to them? A filmic cliche. I don't know.
Well, that reminds me of another film with Forest Whitaker where he's on the roof with pigeons. He plays a ninja.
Ghost Dog.
Ghost Dog. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's on the roof. So I don't know if that's in Brooklyn as well, but
Well, don't they keep pigeons in England too?
Sorry?
They don't keep pigeons in England too?
Yeah, we do.
Pigeons here.
But you keep them in a coop and you fly them. And
Yeah. And they put messages on the legs.
Some people do, I guess.
I think with us, there's people who have them in the gardens. I don't know anyone have them on roofs, but we have people have them in their back gardens, their houses, the pigeons.
Okay.
I guess it's an environmental thing. I guess New York lends itself more with your accommodation to garden tops.
More people if you live in an apartment, backyards and gardens are not as accessible as a roof.
But on the point of Bishop, one thing that I kind of when I watched the film again yesterday struck me was his mental health. And it's interesting you mentioned his dad.
Yeah.
But there's this sense that he feels worthless, because I thought to myself, what's really triggered him to turn on his friends like that and feel no way? He absolutely is stone cold about it.
He wanted the juice, remember?
Pardon?
He wanted the juice, because that's what the juice was.
But there's a couple of lines in the film where he talks about being worthless, having nothing to look forward to. And there's not much, it's not expositional, it's just a couple of lines. And it made me think there are parallels in all of these films, particularly with New Jersey Drive, which we're going to come on to. And if we look at the 70s choice, Car Wash, there's a storyline there around a character Abdullah feeling trapped, feeling hopeless, feeling there's no opportunity for progression. And so, he kind of sees, he tries to rob the business, and he doesn't feel there's any future beyond that moment in time for him to kind of elevate to. And I just wondered whether, in terms of Juice, you wanted to speak on that kind of impact of the environment on mental health of Black people, but young Black men. Because essentially these films all have Black men as the protagonist in this selection. Juice, Deep Cover, your selection, New Jersey Drive. Do you want to speak on the mental health element to these films?
It's funny because I feel like there might even be an entire thesis around the whole idea of mental health in Black films and the genre of Black films. I think it's almost like something that's in the air, this idea that we know these environments that we're trying to live or portray these characters that we're telling, there is damage being done by this broader society. And what, as much as we want to show good times and stuff, maybe that's why our stories are usually end up, or a great bulk of our stories have violence, some malady, some issues that are antisocial, and it might be a thread that you're able to pull out because the writers of the films themselves are not maybe even totally aware of it, but they feel it. They need to portray this sort of this mental health issue that every hood is suffering. Every hood, there are children with PTSD. Every hood has somebody who is on the edge of cracking. Every hood has somebody who's barely holding it together. Every hood is in need of some therapy. Black people, more than reparations, need therapy. I think if we are trying to, move forward in a world that works against us, that's what a bishop was living in. Car wash, people living at subsistence level, at the bottom tier of economics at a car wash, feeling hopeless. It's another moment of people realizing that this is not the life I want to live. This is not the life they painted. And that's probably the scariest thing out of all, the worst thing out of all, looking around and saying, they're living wonderful. What the fuck? Am I not worthy of it? I want the juice, man. You got the juice now, man.
Yeah, that's what it says at the end. Yeah,
Juice, want the juice. Absolutely. So on that segue, shall we move on to 70s?
Oh, can I just say
talk about yours?
Can I say on the music?
Yes, please do.
Juice, that was a phenomenal soundtrack. That did feature Naughty by Nature's Uptown Anthem, which was very big. Obviously, Eric B. and Rakim's Juice Know the Ledge, which was the theme music for that film. Big Daddy Kane's Enough Respect was highly recommended. It was a big song on there. But the soundtrack featured other artists like Cypress Hill, Salt and Pepper, Aaron Hall from Guy, EPMD, Son of Berserk, Brand New Heavies. But it was a very good soundtrack. I remember me as a DJ, that was one to definitely grab, and because there was so many songs you could play from that soundtrack. So
you can't deny. I mean, the power of a soundtrack to pull you into a thing.
Yes,
is Deep Cover had a banging soundtrack.
Oh yeah. Deep Cover was wicked.
Creep with me as I go through the hood. I mean, just the whole, and a soundtrack for a young Black audience is going to carry a lot of energy. It's going to, films had great soundtracks back then.
The one thing I do remember, again, I can see Sophia's going to roll her eyes at this one, is when Omar Epps obviously was in bed with one of the singers from En Vogue. And I remember the song, Is It Good to You by Teddy Riley playing in the background.
Hey!
Now, it's funny you mentioned that relationship because that was a bit odd, wasn't it?
Why?
Because she was going out with an older guy and then going with Omar Epps.
Well, he was like 15 or something.
No, he was 17.
He was 17.
Okay.
Baby, that's how they do in the hood.
I'll let that one slide. But okay, cool. Let's move on to the 70s then. As we did earlier on, what defines a good 70s film for you? What ingredients impacted on your choices for your selection for this segment?
I'm old enough to remember watching 70s films when they first came out. So that's, I wasn't thinking about what makes this a good film when I'm sitting there watching, whatever film I'm watching. But in retrospect, I think what made a good 70s film was this is the period of blaxploitation, but was also the period of directors, of auteurs, guys who wanted to create a vision. I think if I looked at the broader spectrum of 70s films, I'd like for people who had a unique voice. I think in looking back at 70s films, I want somebody who captures that place and that moment and that vibe and that sound. I look at things, cinematography, lenses were different back then. Film stock was different back then. There's a quality to the film of 70s films that you have to do hours in a color room to get that same quality, especially because we're shooting digital these days. So I love the quality of film from the 70s. Yeah, man, just the whole idea of going back to an innocent time.
How about you, Psykhomantus?
70s films, all of the above. Again, I mean, I'm a big fan of the 70s films. The fashion, the stories, all of them seem to relate to each other about fighting against the man. It's like everyone's all just living really, the system was just corrupt and stuff. The natural looks of the brothers and sisters,
I love it.
The afros, the women with the platform shoes, and Pam Grier obviously was everyone's kind of like hero. You had like I forgot his name, Fred. He's been in a lot.
Fred Williamson.
Yes, yeah. He was like the dude. He was the dude. But again, it was just great that these films showed you blackness. They weren't afraid to do that, and to me it's like that's the only time I could think on this planet. I've never seen the 80s go as hard as the 70s. I've not seen the 90s go as hard as the 70s. Still up to this day, I'm not seeing anything that represents that hardcoreness of Black people.
There was you made me think about Black masculinity. 70s was when Black masculinity was unabashed. It was never as unashamedly Black, masculine. I don't even think the 80s even touched it the way the 70s did.
So how do you define Black masculinity, Paul?
It was sexual, but it was also it was take no shit.
Yeah. It was pride.
It was confident and proud. It was heavy-handed. It was the 70s was also, I think, for a lot of people, a lot of kids, the time of the breakdown of the family, divorce, families were splitting up. And I think for a lot of sons, this is where they saw what masculinity looked like. I don't know if it colored the men they became, but I know that a lot of these films help create the mold of masculinity in the man.
We were super bad. That's who we were.
Super bad. One of the first coat my mom bought me when we landed here, I don't know what she made her think. Instead of getting me a nice little snorkel coat or something, she got me a coat with like fur, and it was long with a fur collar. You should have seen me in school, but this is what the kids were wearing. This is what the kids were wearing.
Nice.
Amazing. Okay, well, let's go on to your choice of films. So, Paul, let's start off with yours. Do you remember what you chose?
For what, 70s?
70s. Car Wash.
And what was the next one? Cooley High. Cooley High.
Now, I was saying that I've seen Car Wash many times. I've got romantic memories of Car Wash, the soundtrack.
Yeah, I'm going down.
Yeah, my favorite. Well, I know the Mary J. Blige version first, and then obviously went back to the original. Yeah. But like, I loved Car Wash. I loved the whole fashion, the depiction of the era, the jokes. I loved the use of the radio announcements to juxtapose against scenes that were going on. So, for example, they would use the adverts. So when the woman's in the washroom washing, there's an advert talking about a feminine wash, and there's kind of like this in-joke going on with the radio announcement and what's actually going on screen. And if you watch it again, you'll notice that every time there's a scene, there'll be some witty dialogue on the radio to kind of depict what's going on. So I loved that whole kind of cleverness of the way the dialogue was written, and how the radio became an extra character, and actually so poignant today in terms of platforms and providing a voice for people, that we have YouTube and those things today. But then, you know, radio was the platform. So I really appreciated that. I have to say, for Cooley High, I have not seen this film. I cannot get a hold of this film here. It's not online to stream. So I'm really interested to find out, Paul, why you chose this film and why you feel it's important to talk about in this era.
When I told you that I like Cooley High, you asked me about my favorite films from the 70s and the 90s, and my whole idea of, I only picked Cooley High because I remember it as a vague memory of a film that stood out, of a Black film that stood out and made me feel good. And so it was a recollection, a memory of a recollection, and I couldn't tell you concretely why it was about the film, but in memory, there was a quality of just a authenticity and a sense of, this was one of the first films, I think, 70s, they were starting to do a lot of this youth-oriented, we're going to talk to the youth now. There was like the Warriors, the Wanderers,
wicked,
a lot of these sort of these, like before it really, the last film that I think I filmed that spoke to about young people that way was maybe some film about some hoods, but it was still featuring Charlton Heston as the good cop. And before that, it was probably Rebel Without a Cause. So the 70s, you started getting this new spate of films that were about teenagers and teenage life, American Graffiti. And so this was the Black version of American Graffiti. It was a reminiscing of what it was like to grow up in the 60s, to be Black, growing up in the 60s, the soundtrack, the whole experience of being that young and Black and hopeful. And it was lighthearted. There was a lightheartedness to it. There was no real danger. They weren't slinging drums. They weren't, no one was strung out of heroin. Kids fell in love. They tried to, they were friends. They fell out of friendships. They had girlfriends. They went to red light dances in the house, and try to get into the next girl's, all kinds of stuff. What's going on, and I liked it because if I remember correctly, it felt innocent. A Black innocent film. How many times do we see Black innocent films? Just kids being kids.
Amazing. Psykhomantus, you had a chance to watch this, didn't you? So have you got any thoughts on Cooley High? Do you think it's worthy?
No, I didn't get to watch it fully yet. I was in and out, so I can't really. The only thing I've captured was realizing the movie was about these young boys going to school, the scene of the neighborhood. So I can't really talk that much about the film, but what I did see of it though, it was just an insight of the youth of the late 70s.
Actually, I think it was
Was it the mid?
like the early 60s or something like that.
Oh well, yeah, you know what? Yeah, because I kept thinking, is this the 60s or 70s? But yeah, you're right. You're right.
75.
It was made in 75.
It was made in 75, but I think it was based. It's supposed to be a bit earlier. Am I correct?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but again, I mean, I've not watched it. I'm gonna watch that later today, properly. But from what it really looks like a good educational film of what it was like back in them days. And I think so far the thing that's drawn me to that film was a lot of hip hop artists from the 90s used snippets. I know Ghostface Killer has used a snippet from that film for an intro for one of his songs. The whole background and the look or the style, the rap group Camp Lo is definitely is based, you know, little elements is from that film, because I know Camp Lo is more kind of like basing their style from the 70s kind of funk look and stuff, and they incorporated it into their style and their witty lyrics. So
what's interesting about that film, Paul, they've got the same director.
Who?
Both of your films have got the same director.
Really?
Michael
Schultz.
Car Wash and Cooley High.
He's a black director, even with the name Michael Schultz.
Yeah, same director.
Cool.
Which I think is really interesting that you've picked two films with the same sort of vibe, directed by the same person.
But I didn't know that. I didn't know they were the same director. I had no clue.
There you go.
I wasn't even looking at that. Like, I sort of I sat down and just started thinking about it, and it just turns out. But he actually did a lot of seminal films from that. He did Crush Groove, The Last Dragon. Holy shit.
Yeah. So that is good to know. But let's go on to your choice, Psykhomantus. You've picked a Black British film. Would you like to tell us about the film you've chosen?
Black Joy. Yeah. Black Joy. Wow, what can I say about that film? Right, Black Joy is a 1977 British film, directed by Anthony Simmons. I hope I'm correct on that one. The story is obviously based on an immigrant country boy who comes to Brixton, and he kind of like goes from one disaster to another. And you know, not on his own fault terms, but he seemed to obviously meet up with one guy who seems to be just like a street con. He's basically a street con, and he just seems to just be milking him for money. The one thing I liked about this film is me being born here in British and knowing that these guys are my parents' generation, not my grandparents, my actual parents' generation. And the music, or not just the music, sorry, it's the way of living. It's everyone basically, you know, it's hard to live in them times. I can imagine being Black, British. You're there. I mean, obviously, this film was based in London. So this guy's supposed to be looking for his grandmother. His grandmother. His grandmother died, because I remember at the airport they asked him, why are you here in Britain? And it was so funny with the talk, because with the British people, like, why are you here in Britain? It's like, well, my grandmother sent me here, or someone sent him here. And he's like, why? Because, you know, because my grandmother dead, sir. And, you know, it was just such a basic thing. Like, you know, they're looking at this dude like, okay, who are you going to be looking for work? have you got money? And he's like, yeah, man. And then he pulls out this wallet full of money and stuff where, well, you know, you're not supposed to really do that and stuff. So he was basically like, you know, fresh.
He was completely unfiltered, unguarded.
Yeah, unfiltered, but he was innocent. Yeah.
Naive.
Innocent.
And he's coming into this hardcore world, and especially in London and stuff. So when he goes to Brixton, it was like, yeah, he stuck out like a sore thumb. He even got hustled by a little boy, which started the whole relationship. It was this little boy, I think he was, I don't know, what was it, age 8 or something like that, or maybe younger, 7, and, you know, robbed him. And you know, he ended up, you know, the man ended up having to stay at like a shelter, so to speak. He was looking for a flat. And he just kept going from one con to a next con. He got conned from getting a flat. He got conned with some form of work. He ended up being being friend to a con who was just milking him, like, you know, you come here, you can stay at this place, but, you know, you make the food, you bring in the money, I'll show you how to spend it. It was just like, wow, this guy's just like really is going to learn the hard way.
He was exploited, and
yeah, he was taken for granted and everything.
for granted. And what I thought was quite interesting about the selection of films is, I guess the 70s has been defined as the era of blaxploitation. Do you think that's a fair? How do we define blaxploitation, and do you think that's a fair representation of Black cinema of that era?
I don't know, because to me it's like, it's really just showing you, this film wasn't like, let's create this a story of a drama thing. I mean, everything in that film is like, yeah, that is happening. That is this is what people are going through. You've got this guy who like you said, he's innocent, he's been exploited. But if you look at no, I can't remember his surname. Norman, he played Desmond. He was the street con. There are people like that. He was all about the hustle. He was getting in money. He was spending money that he wasn't supposed to. He was staying with his girlfriend was I forgot her name now.
Lola Benjamin.
Benjamin. And this is a woman who, again, he was taking her for granted because she had a business. She had a son. She was working 2 jobs. She had her in place. But yet this man comes in and stays at her yard. And you know, he wasn't a good role model. But again, going back to your question, it was exploiting. This is what it was like for Caribbean people back in that days. They had to, this is how one person was living, this is how this person was surviving. This is where the pub was the place that they went to, a black pub, where this is where it was their community center stuff. You know, you even had the record shop, the guy who owned the record store, even he was hustling on the side.
So do you think that maybe there's a defining separation between American films of that era and Black British film?
That was definitely
British reality.
That was definitely
American seemed to be this whole sort of fantasy blaxploitation.
Yeah, that film was. That would definitely be put in the Black exploitation from a UK's perspective. Yes.
Well, what would you say on that, Paul?
It's funny because, I mean, as I watched it, I got a sense of, and I hate to do this, but it felt more like an art film. It felt more like a John Cassavetes film. It felt a little bit, just a rawness to it, and a sort of, there was something very almost naive about it. I felt, and it felt less blaxploitation and more like he was being exploited. Like I mean, one of the first scenes, one of the early scenes, I was like, where the hell? He's landing, and the next thing you know, they're doing a cavity search on him. I was like, whoa, this is a little rough. for him to be landing in America. But they're about to screw you everywhere you go, bro.
Mm-hmm.
This is what's gonna happen. Blaxploitation always felt like the hero was the one doing the screwing. Like the black dude, the hero was kicking ass and taking names. And this one, the poor fella, he was getting run over left and right.
But he did get his way at the end, though. You know, he became the king. He took the big man's car, which was it, and he can't even drive.
Yeah.
And he did get the girl. So
yeah, I guess it was a happy ending.
Yeah.
Interesting. So really wanted to talk about the role of youth in both eras. So in the 70s, in the film selections, we have like young kids. In Car Wash, there's the boy on the skateboard and the 8-year-old in Black Joy, who they're both very cheeky, but know their place with adults. And then you've got like the 90s kids who are
front and center.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, would you like to speak on how the representation of youth on screen?
Well, I think it's more of a financial marketing thing. I think there came a point where they realized, well, shit, grown folks got to work. They got time to go watch movies, but these teenagers now, they seem to be having a lot of disposable income. So let's start crafting Hollywood films to speak to them. I think in the 70s, kids were a sidebar. They were like, hey, they're cute. We'll bring them in and we'll get them out. And the adult was the main feature. And then comes along something like an E.T. in the 80s, where kids are now, it's all about the kids.
Absolutely.
The Goonies came out in the 80s.
Goonies,
Yeah.
Goonies,
you know, those could have been, I think those could have been adult focused films, but you know, they realize that kids will want to go see them, get that PG rating. Black Joy wouldn't have gotten a PG rating or whatever.
No, not at all.
But
amazing. Wow, we're going to wrap up, but my final question is going to be, I'm going to throw this out to Paul first. And I'm really interested in the USA's perspective on Black British cinema. And this is generally like, yeah, what's the vibe? What do you know of what we produce here? And, you know, is there anything that you know of that you're excited to watch from the UK, or, you know, even in TV? Like, how do you relate to us in terms of our Black cinema output?
Well, I mean, as far as cinema, I mean, I am going to watch any film that I like, and I can pretty much see anything thanks to the computer. It's not like, I think the biggest issue that I think the West is feeling right now, especially African Americans, is the whole idea of how many films are being acted by British Black actors.
Ooh, okay.
That's something that I've quietly somewhat proud of, but I'm like, I think there's a growing resentment amongst African Americans to seeing so many Afro-British folks taking roles that we're supposed to have. But I don't know what the difference is. What do you think the difference is between the quality of actors and acting that makes a British actor get the role over an American actor?
Well, it's really interesting. Do Americans not feel that they've earned the roles?
I don't know. I'm not an actor. But what do you, I mean, you see, is there a quality about British actors that makes them, I don't know.
It may come down to training. We have some great, I'm not saying America doesn't have, but we have some great drama schools here, like RADA, for example, the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, Performing Arts. So we have a really great foundation, obviously, you know, classical training, Shakespearean training. Maybe that's what it is. We've got a great theatre, well, we did have, a great theatre community here as well. I don't know what it is, but I imagine that America just has a lot more. So the percentage of Black British actors getting work in America is actually really small, isn't it? Isn't it really small? America's huge.
Think about how many giant roles there are, and like TV series, movies, and the fact that the English actors are taking so many of them. Get Out was an English actor, right?
And he was good, right?
He was great, and I would never have known that he was English. I don't know how the British do such good American accents.
That's the beauty of being an actor. You're not supposed to. if they could do the role, that's the job. Doesn't matter where they're from. If you can do the role, you can do the role.
That's really interesting. I mean, obviously, you know, people have spoken on that in the past, but I didn't know it was still a prevalent concern.
I think it might be. I'm not quite sure though. I'm not hanging out with a lot of actors.
Okay, what about I don't know his name, but he was the one that played in the Five Bloods. He's the one that was having that PTS or whatever you call it. He's a British actor.
Who's that one?
Delroy Lindo. Was it Delroy?
Yeah.
He's Jamaican too. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
He gets a blind. Come on, he's Jamaican.
Yeah, but he's not American.
So what about we are one people. We are the diaspora.
That's the thing. That is the thing. You know, if I was getting a job as a DJ in New York, and they'd be like, well, you can't DJ because you're not from New York. You can't come on Hot 97.
Yeah, but
that makes no sense to me.
You've dug through crates that I would guess haven't been dug through before. You've got access to shit that, you know, you could go deeper into some shit that probably American DJs haven't seen or even know about.
I hear you, but what I'm trying to say is, like, if you could do the role, whether it's TV or film, and, you know, whatever you've applied for, and you nail it, you know, someone's background of like, well, you know, that person's from England. It shouldn't be a threat. It's the quality of work.
Sure.
You know, would I? Again, it's the same as a doctor. If someone passes their university or wants to become a doctor, it doesn't matter where you're from. It's how you perform.
Well, I think it's obviously a concern. It's very interesting to kind of debate it because.
Well, maybe we need Samuel Jackson because he's the one that turned around and seemed like that we were a threat. So, you know, maybe we need to ask him to say, "What's your problem?"
Yeah, for real. But we'll probably leave that one for a deep dive on another day. You reckon?
Sure.
Well, this has been a really good conversation. Thank you so much, Paul and Psykhomantus.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me.
We would love for you to jump on again. And next time, Paul, I will make the topic of choice your choice.
No. You drive. Your show.
But to everybody watching, thank you. Stay safe, and we shall see you soon on our next podcast, webcast, online something very soon. This is Flim Scored.
Flim.
Signing out. Wakanda forever. All right.
Adios.